The espresso machine hissed behind me as my brother James and his wife Sarah walked into my cafe, their designer clothes and matching smirks perfectly coordinated. I hadn't seen them in months, not since the last family dinner where they'd spent 2 hours bragging about their corporate success and Sarah's recent promotion to VP of Operations at Tech Solutions International. "Well, if it isn't my little brother, still playing restaurant," James announced loudly enough for other customers to hear. "When are you going to get a real job like the rest of us?" I continued wiping down the counter, my movements deliberate and calm. At 35, I was only 2 years younger than James, but he'd always treated me like I was decades his junior, especially since I'd left my corporate job to open the Daily Grind Café 3 years ago. "The usual?" I asked, already knowing they'd order the most expensive drinks on the menu, drinks they never pay for because family discounts. Sarah leaned against the counter, her Cartier bracelet catching the morning light. "Make mine extra hot this time. Last time it was barely warm." I guess that's what happens when you can't afford proper barista training. What they didn't know, what nobody in my family knew, was that the daily grind was just the tip of my business iceberg. Over the past decade, I'd quietly invested my corporate savings in commercial real estate, starting with this very building. While they saw a little cafe, I saw the anchor tenant of my 12-property portfolio. "Did you hear about my promotion?" Sarah continued, not waiting for a response. "Senior vice president now. The company's expanding, and they need someone with actual business acumen to handle the growth." I nodded, steaming milk for their drinks. Through my real estate connections, I'd heard whispers about Tech Solutions' financial troubles. Their aggressive expansion had been built on shaky foundations, but Sarah and James were too caught up in their corporate titles to see the warning signs. "You know," James added, watching me work, "it's not too late to come work for us. I could probably get you an entry-level position, better than wasting your life serving coffee." The irony wasn't lost on me. While they flaunted their corporate success, I'd been quietly building an empire. The Daily Grind had expanded to 3 locations, each situated in buildings I owned. My real estate portfolio was worth north of $50 million. But I still worked shifts at the original cafe because I genuinely loved the business. "Thanks for the offer," I replied, sliding their drinks across the counter. "But I'm doing fine." Sarah rolled her eyes. "Fine? You're what, 40, and still making coffee for a living? This isn't success, it's settling." I thought about the meeting I had later that day with my property management team. We were finalizing plans to acquire a prime downtown office building, coincidentally, the one housing Tech Solutions International's headquarters. My real estate broker had tipped me off that the current owner was looking for a quick, quiet sale. "Everyone has their own path," I said diplomatically. "Path to nowhere," James snorted. "Remember when we were kids, and you said you'd be more successful than me? Look how that turned out." I remembered, just like I remembered every dismissive comment, every mockery of my choices, every time they treated me like a cautionary tale at family gatherings. Their laughter echoed through the cafe as they left, neither bothering to pay for their drinks. My phone buzzed. A text from my broker. "Offer accepted on TSI building. Closing in 30 days. Seller agrees to confidentiality until closing." I smiled, thinking about the certified letter Tech Solutions would receive in exactly 31 days, informing them of their new landlord and the upcoming rent review. Sarah's expansion plans would hit a significant snag when she realized their sweetheart lease deal was about to expire. That evening, at our monthly family dinner, James and Sarah dominated the conversation as usual. "We're thinking of buying a bigger house," Sarah announced. "The bonus from this expansion will easily cover it." "That's wonderful," our mother beamed. "And what about you?" she asked, turning to me. "Still making ends meet with the cafe?" Before I could answer, James jumped in. "Mom, he's not exactly management material. Some people are just meant to serve others. Right, little brother?" I took a sip of wine, thinking about the documents my lawyers were preparing. "You'd be surprised what people are capable of." "Oh, please," Sarah laughed. "The highlight of your day is probably making my latte. Speaking of which, it was cold again this morning." "I'll try to do better next time," I replied mildly. 2 weeks later, the first cracks in Tech Solutions' facade began to show. My property management team reported that they'd missed their rent payment on one of their satellite offices, not my building, but a concerning sign. Sarah and James remained oblivious, still planning their luxury home purchase. They stopped by the cafe more frequently, each visit accompanied by fresh jabs at my career choice. "We're launching a new division," Sarah bragged one morning. "Soon we'll have offices in every major city. That's what real success looks like." I nodded, thinking of the financial reports on my desk showing tech solutions mounting debts and declining revenues. Their expansion was a house of cards, but Sarah was too proud to see it. James added, "When the company goes public next year, Sarah and I will be millionaires. Maybe we'll buy this building and turn it into something more upscale than a coffee shop." "Interesting plan," I replied, knowing I'd already signed the purchase agreement for their headquarters building. The closing date was approaching, and with it, the first domino in their carefully constructed illusion would fall. Sarah leaned across the counter. "We should probably warn you. Once we own the building, we might have to raise the rent. Business is business after all." Nothing personal. I thought about the similar conversation I'd be having with tech solutions in a few weeks. Though from the opposite side of the table. Nothing personal, I agreed. Just business. The next few weeks passed in a blur of preparation. My property management team drafted new lease terms for tech solutions, including a substantial rent increase to match market rates. My lawyers prepared documentation showing the company's pattern of late payments in their other locations, giving us leverage in upcoming negotiations. Meanwhile, Sarah and James grew more insufferable with each visit. "We've put in an offer on a mansion," Sarah announced one morning. 5 bedrooms, pool, tennis court, you should see it. "Oh wait, on a barista's salary, you probably can't even drive through that neighborhood." I continued wiping down the espresso machine. "Congratulations, when do you close?" "Next month," James grinned. "Right after Tech Solutions' big expansion announcement. The board's meeting next week to finalize everything." I knew about the board meeting. My team had been monitoring Tech Solutions' activities closely. We'd also heard from reliable sources that several board members had serious concerns about the company's financial stability. The day before the closing on the TSI building, Sarah and James made their usual morning visit. "Last chance to join a real business," Sarah smirked. "Once our expansion goes through, we won't have entry-level positions anymore." I handed them their drinks. "I appreciate the offer, but I'm happy where I am." "Your loss," James shrugged. "Enjoy serving coffee for the rest of your life. By the way, we're having a housewarming party next month. We'll send you an invitation. You can cater it. For a family discount, of course." They left laughing, their designer shoes clicking against the floor I'd mopped earlier that morning. My phone buzzed. A message from my lawyer confirming the closing had been completed early. I was now officially their landlord. The next morning, Sarah and James didn't show up for their usual coffee. By noon, I knew why. Tech Solutions Board had rejected the expansion plan and called for an emergency financial audit. By evening, news of the company's troubles had begun to leak. I closed the cafe early that night, heading to my real estate office to prepare for the storm I knew was coming. The certified letters would go out tomorrow, informing all Tech Solutions offices in my buildings of their new ownership and updated lease terms. Sarah and James were about to learn that success comes in many forms, and sometimes the person they've been mocking is the one holding all the cards. The morning after Tech Solutions board meeting, my cafe was unusually quiet. I knew why. The company's stock had plunged in pre-market trading as news of their financial troubles spread. At precisely 9 a.m., my property management company delivered certified letters to every Tech Solutions office in my buildings. My phone rang at 9:47. "Sarah." "There must be some mistake," she said, her voice missing its usual condescension. "We just received notice that our headquarters building has a new owner, and our lease terms are being reviewed." "No mistake," I replied, wiping down the espresso machine. "Just business. But they're tripling our rent and demanding an audit of our financials. They can't do that." I thought about all the times she'd mocked my little cafe, all the times she'd threatened to buy my building and raise my rent. "Actually, they can. It's all in the original lease agreement." "James wants to talk to you," she snapped. I heard rustling as the phone changed hands. "Listen," James said, trying to sound authoritative despite the tremor in his voice. "You must know someone in your building's management. Put in a good word for us. Tech Solutions is a major corporation. They can't treat us like this." "I'll pass along your concerns to the owner," I replied calmly. "The owner?" James scoffed. Like some coffee shop worker has connections to major real estate investors. Just, just tell the management company to call me. They will, I assured him. Tomorrow at 10 a.m. in the main conference room of your building. How do you know that? Because I scheduled the meeting. Silence. Then Sarah's voice, distant but clear. What does he mean he scheduled it? The next morning, I arrived at Tech Solutions headquarters wearing a suit instead of my usual cafe apron. The security guard, who'd probably seen James and Sarah mock me through the lobby windows countless times, did a double take as he checked my ID and printed my one-year visitor badge. Sarah and James were already in the conference room, along with their CFO and legal team. Their expressions when I walked in were worth every moment of their past condescension. What is this? Sarah stammered. I took my seat at the head of the table, placing my portfolio before me. As I mentioned yesterday, we're here to discuss your lease terms. But first, let me properly introduce myself as your new landlord. James laughed nervously. This is a joke, right? You run a coffee shop. I own the Daily Grind cafe chain, yes, along with this building and 11 others in the city's prime locations, including 3 buildings where Tech Solutions currently rents space. The color drained from Sarah's face as she finally understood. But that's impossible. You're just a barista. A barista who spent the last decade investing in commercial real estate while you were busy mocking my career choices. I opened my portfolio, now about those lease terms. The meeting lasted 2 hours. Tech Solutions' financial situation was worse than even I'd suspected. The company had overextended itself, counting on funding that hadn't materialized. Sarah's aggressive expansion plans had been built on optimistic projections and creative accounting. We can't afford these new rates, their CFO finally admitted. We're already struggling to make payroll. Then I suggest you start looking for smaller offices, I replied. Perhaps something more in line with your actual budget rather than your projected image. Sarah, who'd been uncharacteristically quiet, suddenly burst out. What about our house? We're supposed to close next week. I'd recommend calling your realtor, I suggested. Given the company's situation, I doubt your mortgage will be approved. As the meeting ended, James tried one last appeal to family ties. We're brothers, he pleaded. You can't do this to us. I thought about every dismissive comment, every mockery of my little cafe, every time they treated me like a failure. Actually, James, I'm not doing anything to you. Your company's financial mismanagement did this. I'm just a landlord protecting my investment. The next few weeks were chaotic. Tech Solutions announced major layoffs, including Sarah's entire division. Their stock price continued to fall as more financial irregularities came to light. James and Sarah had to back out of their house purchase, losing a substantial deposit. They stopped coming to the cafe, but I heard about them through family. They'd had to sell their luxury car, and their designer clothes were appearing on consignment shop websites. Sarah's carefully crafted image of corporate success crumbled as quickly as Tech Solutions' stock price. Then came the morning they returned to my cafe, not as customers, but as job seekers. We've been doing some thinking, Sarah said, her designer handbag replaced by a modest purse. Maybe we could work here. James could manage one of your locations, and I have extensive business experience. I continued making drinks for my paying customers. Sorry, all positions are currently filled, but I hear the coffee shop in the mall is hiring. Entry-level positions only, though. James flinched at hearing his own words thrown back at him. Come on, we're family. After everything we've been through. I set down the cup I was holding. You mean like you mocking my career choices? Threatening to buy my building and raise my rent? Treating me like a failure because I chose to build something real instead of chasing corporate titles. We didn't know, Sarah began. Exactly. You didn't know because you never bothered to look past your own assumptions. You saw what you wanted to see, a failure serving coffee, instead of seeing someone building a business empire right under your noses. They left without ordering drinks, their shoulders slumped in defeat. Through my cafe windows, I watched them walk past the For Lease sign in Tech Solutions' former headquarters. My phone buzzed, a message from my real estate broker about another potential acquisition. Life moved forward, just not in the direction James and Sarah had imagined. 6 months later, I hosted a grand opening for my 4th cafe location. The event attracted local business media, eager to profile the hidden real estate mogul behind the successful coffee chain. James and Sarah watched from across the street. I'd heard they'd both taken retail jobs at the mall. My mother attended the opening, finally understanding why I'd chosen my path. I wish I'd supported you more, she admitted, looking around the crowded cafe. We all bought into James and Sarah's version of success. Success comes in many forms, I replied, thinking of the framed receipt hanging in my office, James and Sarah's last unpaid coffee order from all those months ago. Below it sat my latest real estate acquisition paperwork, proof that sometimes the best revenge is simply succeeding on your own terms. The story made the rounds in business circles how the quiet cafe owner had built a real estate empire while his corporate climbing brother and sister-in-law missed the signs right in front of them. Young entrepreneurs started visiting my cafe, not just for coffee, but for advice. The secret, I told one young woman who reminded me of Sarah in her corporate days, is to build something real, and never underestimate someone just because they serve your coffee. Last week, I received an invitation to James and Sarah's garage sale. They're downsizing to a smaller apartment, still trying to recover from Tech Solutions' collapse. I sent my regrets. I had a meeting with my property management team about acquiring another building. Sometimes I still make coffee at my original cafe location, enjoying the irony when customers in expensive suits dismiss me as just a barista. I think about James and Sarah, about their mockery and condescension, about how they never saw past their own prejudices. My phone buzzes, another acquisition opportunity. Life goes on, lessons are learned, and success. Well, success tastes a lot like a perfectly brewed cup of coffee served with a side of sweet justice.